Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Genetic Genius Vibe. I'm Dr. Lulu, and I'm going to be your fabulous host as I talk today about MTHFR and mutations and the top 10 truths about the MTHFR gene, which you need to know. So, what is MTHFR? So, MTHFR is a fancy or a not so fancy acronym for methylene tetrahydrofolate reductase. And this is both an enzyme and a gene. And it's super important and crucial for the body because it processes folate or folic acid. And our bodies need this specific enzymatic reaction to occur. And when it doesn't, we have this buildup in the system, which causes extra toxins to build up because we're not able to eliminate them properly. So, very important aspect of our body is to have the MTHFR gene working properly and to have that enzyme working properly. So, methylation is basically a biochemical process that's essential for the proper functioning of nearly all systems in the body. It occurs basically billions of times a second. So fast, we don't even, of course, recognize it. Our body's just doing it on its own, thank God. But it helps repair our DNA. It controls homocysteine and it recycles molecules in the body that are needed for detoxification. So that's really key. It also helps to keep our inflammation in check and maintains mood. So super important. You can see those things are very essential for maintaining proper bodily functions on an everyday basis. So let's talk about the top 10 truths around MTHFR or the MTHFR mutation. So, one is that we're really seeing a lot more people around the globe having MTHFR mutations. And we're seeing now that is as high as 50%. And we're seeing that through different ethnicities and different populations. But it's important to being tested because you don't want to fall into that category, right? Of, oh, you are in that 50% category. So I believe that MTHFR genetic testing is very important and not just testing that one gene. You can get a test, just an MTHFR genetic test, but again, getting that whole encompassing genetic test so we can see all the different variables and SNPs. So MTHFR, again, is a gene that's super crucial. It creates an enzyme that plays an important role in processing amino acids. Specifically, it helps break down homocysteine, and then that goes into methionine. So it helps to break down homocysteine. So sometimes when we have that MTHFR mutation, we're going to see a buildup of homocysteine. I'm going to be talking a little bit about that. What are some of the effects of mutation? This is truth number 3. So HFR mutations change the genetic code specifically. So that mutation is going to come in, it's going to change our genetic code, the genome, which causes homocysteine to build up in the blood. And that's really specifically when you have 2 copies of the C variant. So there's different variations or variants of the MTHFR gene. So when you have 2 variants, so C677T, so you have 2 copies of that variant, which then will lead to a higher buildup of homocysteine in the blood. So that's the effects of the mutation. So number 4, homocystinuria. This is basically an extra buildup of homocysteine in the urine or in the body. So the body is then not able to process homocysteine into methionine. This can cause all kinds of different things in the system, specifically abnormal clotting and eye problems. Those are just a few of the things that you might see from that specific mutation and variant. Number 5 is neural tube defects. So this is really important. If you're a mom or family member and you're considering to start working on having a baby or you're considering having a baby in your future, it's important to have this genetic testing done because it's going to show if you have the MTHFR mutation, which you can have an increased risk of having a baby with neural tube defects. So very important to have that test completed. So number 6, what other truths are around other health problems that the MTHFR variant or mutation can be linked to? So we do see a lot of things, particularly with the cardiovascular system and with the neurological system. So heart diseases, stroke, like I mentioned, increased risk for clotting disorders, autism, mental health conditions. We see depression, anxiety. So these don't specifically mean that you are going to get these specific conditions, but it really helps us to, from a preventative standpoint, to help you in the future, right? Knowing you have that MTHFR variant or mutation lets us see how we can prevent things farther down the line. All right. So, number 7, testing for DNA and MTHFR can confirm if a mutation is the cause. So, this is really important because I really believe strongly in genetic testing, and testing the specific DNA and MTHFR mutation can confirm that. So if you have a blood test done that shows a lot of high homocysteine in the system, you want to figure out why. And so doing a DNA test or a specific MTHFR test can show us that data. But number 8, so MTHFR is not always the cause of very high levels of homocysteine. You want to make sure you're ruling out other conditions. For instance, that could be hypothyroidism or high cholesterol or hypertension. These are some of the other things that might show up in the case of a really high elevated homocysteine level. Number 9 is folate. So, taking extra folate does not necessarily benefit someone with the MTHFR variant. It's important to take a methylated B12. And number 10 is in making sure that you're testing your B12 levels. So, there's all different types of aspects that go that are linked up to an MTHFR mutation. So, let's recap. So, 1, you want to make sure you're doing the test for your DNA and MTHFR mutation. Number 2, you want to test your homocysteine levels. Number 3, you want to test your B12 levels. So those are really important. And you could see also if your genetic test shows some other things, or other vitamins, I should say, that were out of balance. So you could also test those. So I hope you learned a lot today about the MTHFR mutation. I also have a freebie. If you go to my link in my bio on Instagram, you can download my MTHFR and mutation guide, which is really going to dive deep into more of these signs and symptoms that you might have an MTHFR mutation, and some tips on what to do about it. So thanks again for tuning in today, and I'll see you next week.